Imagine this. You're sitting across from someone you trust, and suddenly their words cut deeper than they should. You feel smaller, diminished, like part of your soul is being erased. And the worst part, you've been taught this is just how relationships work. But what if everything you've been conditioned to tolerate is actually psychological violence? What if the behaviors you make excuses for are systematically destroying the woman you were meant to become? Carl Jung understood something. Society refuses to acknowledge there are certain behaviors that should never be tolerated by a conscious woman. Not because you're difficult or too sensitive, but because your psychological integrity depends on it. The uncomfortable truth? Most women have been programmed to be emotional shock absorbers, to take the blow, swallow the pain, and somehow transform toxicity into love. But Jung knew better. Have you ever walked on eggshells around someone who claims to love you? Found yourself apologizing for things that weren't your fault? Looked in the mirror wondering where the strong woman you used to be disappeared? That's not love, that's not normal. And it's slowly killing the authentic you. We're here to reveal the 10 behaviors Jung would identify as absolutely unacceptable, because sometimes the most radical act of self-love is refusing to accept what damages your soul. Stay until the end. This might be the wake-up call you didn't know you needed. He knows what to say and when to say it. His words seem wrapped in care but carry invisible threads. You begin to act differently, think differently, even feel differently without ever being told what to do. Jung called this the shadows dance, when unconscious parts of one person manipulate the unconscious of another. It's not always loud. It's often quiet, seductive, convincing. It makes you believe the idea was yours all along. But what if your will has slowly been stolen under the guise of love? This is not affection. This is possession in disguise. A man who cannot face his own darkness will try to live it through you. He may not scream or insult, but his presence rewrites the script of your mind. You start censoring yourself, softening your instincts, apologizing for your clarity. Jung warned that when the shadow is denied, it finds another body to act through. If you are always adapting, always shrinking, always guessing, you are no longer yourself. You are a puppet whose strings are invisible, but very real. Ask yourself, do you feel free or merely approved of? Do you choose, or are you being chosen to serve a role? True connection does not reprogram your essence, it expands it. Jung believed that wholeness comes from integration, not submission. A relationship where you lose yourself is not love. It is a shadow game, and the longer you stay, the deeper. You forget who you were before the curtain opened. You open your heart, and he turns his face. You ask for closeness, and he withdraws in silence. Not because he is busy, but because you dared to show emotion. Carl Jung taught that the ego defends itself when it feels threatened by intimacy. To the emotionally wounded man, vulnerability is not a bridge, but a battlefield. He punishes your truth not with words, but with absence, a coldness that leaves you questioning your worth. You begin to calculate your expressions. You tone down your honesty. You try to predict what version of you he will accept today. This is not emotional maturity. This is emotional starvation. Jung believed that repression always creates distortion. When a man cannot receive your truth, he will force you to wear a mask. And little by little, you disappear beneath that disguise, chasing breadcrumbs of affection that once came freely. A man who withholds love to control is not protecting himself. He is protecting the walls that prevent his transformation. Jung said that only by facing the unconscious can one grow. But the man who fears depth will silence anyone who speaks from it. If you find yourself afraid to feel, afraid to ask, afraid to be, then you are not loved. You are being managed. And love was never meant to feel like management. You speak from the soul, and he smirks. You try to explain your inner world, and he turns it into a joke. What you feel deeply, he calls too much. Carl Jung warned of the negative animus, the inner masculine energy distorted by fear and repression. When a man mocks your emotional truth, he is not being playful. He is terrified. Terrified of what he does not understand and cannot control. He calls you dramatic, too sensitive, overthinking. But those words are not facts, they are defenses. Jung believed that when a person cannot integrate their own feelings, they attack those who can. Your ability to reflect, to feel deeply, to name the invisible becomes a mirror. And what he sees in that mirror scares him, so he cracks it, hoping to silence his own discomfort. But the crack only distorts your image, not your truth. A man who laughs at your soul is not light-hearted. He is disconnected. He prefers noise over silence, reason over intuition, surface over depth. Jung said that the soul speaks through symbols, dreams, emotions. If he refuses to hear that language, he will never truly know you, and if he cannot meet your depth, he will only drown in his own shallowness. Never shrink to fit a world that fears feeling. It is not your job to make yourself simpler. It is his task to evolve. He says he wants you, then disappears. He promises presence, then retreats. You are always unsure whether to lean in or step back. This is not unpredictability. This is chaos disguised as freedom. Carl Jung described the trickster as an archetype that disrupts clarity and truth. It confuses, deceives, entertains, and escapes. And when a man embodies this energy, he becomes a mirror maze, where nothing is what it seems. You begin to doubt your memory, your instincts, even your reality. Today, he is warm. Tomorrow, he is distant. The ground beneath your feet is never stable. Jung believed that the psyche needs structure to grow. But a man who dances between hot and cold is not spontaneous. He is fragmented, unable to offer coherence because he is at war within himself. And you, caught in his chaos, start to question your own sanity. A consistent man does not need to be perfect. He only needs to be honest. A man who plays with your clarity is not mysterious. He is manipulative. Jung taught that wholeness demands integrity, not masks, not games. If you constantly wonder where you stand, then you are standing in a storm, and no heart can bloom in the middle of a hurricane. Choose the path where your peace is not interrupted by someone else's confusion. You care, and he uses it. You listen, and he takes more. You forgive, and he tests further. What began as connection becomes consumption. Carl Jung warned that the wounded masculine feeds off others because it cannot nourish itself. When a man turns your empathy into a leash, he is not receiving love. He is devouring your energy to avoid his own emptiness. You begin to feel responsible for his pain, his moods, his wounds. You adjust to soothe him, forgetting to care for yourself. Jung taught that true healing comes from inner work, not from using others as emotional scaffolding. But the man who fears self-confrontation seeks women who will bleed emotionally for his survival, and the more you give, the more he needs, until there is nothing left of you but exhaustion dressed as devotion. Empathy without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. Compassion without reciprocity becomes self-erasure. Jung believed that every soul must face its own darkness to grow. If he demands that you carry his shadow, he is refusing his journey and dragging you down instead. Do not mistake emotional labor for love. The woman who saves everyone ends up buried in the ruins she tried to rebuild. You are not a refuge. You are a flame meant to burn, not to be consumed. You feel something is off. You speak it and he laughs. He calls it paranoia, drama, a fantasy of your imagination. But the feeling persists. Jung believed that the feminine psyche is deeply intuitive, connected to unconscious truths beyond logic. When a man mocks that inner knowing, he is not protecting truth. He is protecting a lie. You begin to distrust yourself. You search for proof. Instead of trusting your perception, you analyze his tone, replay conversations, question your sensitivity. Jung warned that when the inner voice is silenced, the psyche fragments. A man who consistently dismisses your intuition is not helping you stay grounded. He is pulling you into his version of reality, where only what serves him is valid. A woman's intuition is not a weakness, it is ancestral wisdom. Jung saw it as a sacred link to the unconscious, a compass that guides the soul. When that compass is broken, you lose direction, not just in love, but in life. Do not let anyone teach you to doubt what your body already knows. If you feel unsafe, unheard, unseen, you are not crazy. You are awake, and no amount of logic can justify the betrayal of your own soul. He measures instead of merges. He compares instead of celebrates. When you shine, he dims the light. When you succeed, he turns away. Jung believed the immature animus resists union. It does not know how to support because it is still proving itself. A man who sees your growth as a threat has not yet met his own potential. You begin to shrink, to play small, to soften your brilliance so he feels bigger. But this is not love. This is survival. Jung taught that love is the union of opposites, not the battle of egos. A relationship is not a contest, it is a mirror. And when he uses that mirror to inflate himself instead of reflect, you become the shadow he must conquer, not the soul he must meet. There is no peace in a home where you must constantly prove you are not trying to win. Real love wants to witness your rise. Jung said the true masculine holds space, protects becoming, celebrates transformation. If he needs you to fail so he can feel strong, then he is not a partner. He is a rival wearing the mask of affection. And no woman should have to dim her light just to be loved. Your power is not a threat, it is a truth. And only a whole man will honor it. He wraps his manipulation in reason. He uses calm tones, structured arguments, and clever phrases. And somehow, you end every conversation feeling wrong. Jung called this the inflation of the intellect. When the mind becomes so dominant, it disconnects from the soul. It begins to control instead of understand. Gaslighting wears a suit of logic, but it suffocates your truth. You bring up something that hurt, and he rewrites it. He didn't say that. You misunderstood. You're overreacting. Slowly, your trust in your own memory fades. Jung believed that denying the emotional realm in favor of pure reason creates a distorted psyche. A man who uses intellect to erase your reality is not intelligent. He is afraid to face the truth of his impact. There is a difference between disagreement and erasure. A man who truly sees you will not need to be right to feel safe. Jung taught that real awareness comes from embracing both mind and feeling. If he cannot sit with your pain without dissecting it, he is not present, he is performing. And if you must explain your truth over and over, it is not a debate. It is a warning. Your reality is sacred, protect it. He studies your wounds, not to heal them, but to use them. He senses where you question yourself and builds his power in that space. Compliments laced with criticism, support that ends in silence. Jung warned of psychic vampirism, where one person unconsciously feeds off another's insecurity to avoid their own emptiness. You start believing you are lucky to have him, that you are too much, too emotional, too intense. He reinforces the story that you are hard to love, and only he is patient enough to stay. But Jung taught that this is projection. The man who cannot face his own inadequacy makes you feel small to feel in control. It is not strength. It is fear wearing confidence. Like a costume, love does not require your collapse. True connection does not grow from self-hate. Jung said that only by integrating the shadow can we love without consuming. If a man needs your insecurity to feel stable, he will never allow you to rise, because your wholeness would reveal his fracture. And a fractured man would rather keep you doubting than dare to look in the mirror. You are not hard to love. You are hard to manipulate when you remember who you are. You begin to grow, read more, reflect more, set boundaries. And suddenly he resists. He mocks your changes. He questions your new clarity. Carl Jung said the purpose of life is individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Any man who feels threatened by your evolution is not protecting love. He is protecting control. You feel guilty for changing, afraid of outgrowing him. You shrink your dreams to match his comfort. But Jung taught that love cannot survive where growth is feared. A conscious woman expanding into her full self is not abandoning the relationship. She is inviting it to deepen. If he cannot meet you at your next level, then he was never really meeting you at all. Real love supports your becoming. It does not ask you to remain small to be palatable. Jung believed that each soul must fulfill its unique path. If a man demands that you freeze in time to stay lovable, he is asking for a shadow, not a partner, and you were never born to live someone else's fear of your power. The journey to yourself is sacred. Anyone who tries to block it is standing between you and your destiny. Let them move, or move through them. If this opened your eyes, subscribe now, because every week we reveal what no one else dares to say about love, power, and the truth hidden beneath desire.